Greetings, loyal subjects of the Imperium of Man. I am Librarian Elias of the Adeptus Astartes. I am creating a series of recordings with the intent of educating the general populace of the dangers of the galaxy. All of this information comes from the Lexicanum provided to me by the Adeptus Mechanicus. I will be reading verbatim from their archives. This recording will cover one of the few allies the Imperium has. The chapter I, Elias, hail from, the Blood Ravens. The culture of the Blood Ravens is noted to be that of a very scholarly chapter. This is held up by the very nature to wish to learn and explore everything, as well as the fact that they maintain some of the most extensive libraries in the Imperium. The homeworld of the Blood Ravens is the planet of Aurelia, of the Aurelian subsector. Their home and their fortress monastery of Selenon was their permanent base of operations. Aurelia was a hive world that served as the subsector's capital, and it was advanced and prosperous. In the later years of M41, however, it was engulfed by a warp storm that was summoned by the Great Unclean One, Ulcair. Despite the best efforts of Chapter Master Mariah and Chief Librarian Azariah Kyrus, who succeeded in sealing Ulcair, Aurelia was totally consumed by the warp. Thereafter, the chapter became fleet-based. The Blood Ravens are a mysterious chapter of Space Marines dedicated to the acquisition of knowledge as well as service to the Imperium of Man. The Blood Ravens possess a cadre of powerful librarians and are noted for their ability to predict enemy movements and fall on them with the precise application of force required. Their origins are unknown and a cause of much speculation to themselves and others. Currently, the Blood Ravens are reckoned to be on the verge of extinction, having lost their chapter master and a good part of their chapter due to the decade-lasting Aurelian Crusade, a series of 2 crusades that fell upon the planet of Aurelia. The first Aurelian Crusade was due to an orc invasion. However, they were discovered to be stirred up by an Eldar raiding party. The Second Aurelian Crusade occurred due to chaos invading the planet Aurelia. The precise founding in which the Blood Ravens were created is unknown, as their own chapter histories only begin in early Millennium 37. Though other Imperial records contain some small references to the chapter, proving their existence before then, it is an important note that the Blood Ravens' histories are completely absent before the M37 date. They are not just spotty or fragmentary records. As a result, the Astartes of the chapter know absolutely nothing about their origins, including having no knowledge of their progenitor legion or Primarch. This absence of information about a Primarch has resulted in the Blood Ravens focusing their spiritual reverence on the Emperor. However, they do have one particular mytho-historical figure of import in the form of Azariah Vidya, known as the Great Father of the Blood Ravens. Azariah Vidya is reputed to have been a member of the chapter during its first years. According to the legend, factual records of this event apparently do not exist. During a disastrous campaign against a chaotic uprising in the Gothic sector, their chapter master, Master of Sanctity, and most of their elite first company were killed in action. The young chapter, now without much of their senior cadre, turned to the chief librarian Vidya for leadership. Vidya, already said to be an expert in the ways of the ruinous powers, turned to both research and guile to achieve victory. Researching and documenting the enemy's movements, tactics, and histories for clues, as well as using his Space Marine and Imperial Guard forces to probe enemy lines, strengths, and reactions. After some months of such scrying and research, Vidya claimed he had the full knowledge to defeat those arrayed against them, launching a counterattack of surgical Astarte strikes on apparently deserted enemy positions that turned out to be hiding critical chaos staging bases. The strikes were perfect, sweeping aside those before them, leading to the quick and bloody close of the campaign. In the aftermath, it was discovered that the whole rebellion, and therefore the associated extermination of the Blood Ravens veterans, had been organized by the Alpha Legion. Following the success of this campaign, Vidya was asked by the secret masters of the chapter to officially become chapter master, something he did while retaining his position as chief librarian. This resulted in the tradition of the Blood Ravens, whereby librarians sometimes afforded dual roles as command officers. There was a Blood Ravens company known as the Fated. They were the Blood Ravens' 5th company, and though the reasons for being called the Fated are obscure, it may go back to an incident recorded in the annals of the chapter's librarium, but never spoken openly. In Millennium 38, the entire 5th Company was recorded as having been lost to the warp, but the truth of the matter may be far darker, as it is whispered that one of the company's librarians was seduced by the lure of the ruinous powers and turned his fellow brethren to chaos. This notion, by and large, is dismissed by the chapter today, but for unknown reasons, the current members of the Blood Ravens' 5th Company wear bandages of redemption, penitence, and shame upon their armor suits. During Millennia 41, the Great Unclean One, Ulker, was unleashed upon the Blood Ravens' homeworld of Aurelia. Despite the best efforts of then Chapter Master Mariah and Chief Librarian Azariah, who succeeded in sealing Ulker, Aurelia was consumed by the warp. During the 41st millennium, the Blood Ravens of fact, not legend, are driven by the need to discover the truth about their origins, as well as the philosophy of the gaining of knowledge. To this end, they have developed friendly interactions with the Adeptus Mechanicus and have often been assigned to exploratory missions to unknown or explored areas of the galaxy. As a result, combined with their own mission to seek out ancient ruins, mythic sites, or other sources of information, the Blood Ravens have done much to expand the boundaries of both Imperial knowledge and space. The Blood Ravens have also become notable for engaging their heretic brethren, with some of their most recent campaigns featuring heavy interaction against the forces of chaos. Of particular import are the actions of the 3rd Company under Gabriel Angelos on the world of Tartarus, wherein the Alpha Legion, as well as various Xenos forces, were combated. The multi-company force commanded by Captain Davian Thule, who had to deal with Wordbearer's interference during a complex mission primarily directed against the Necron threat on the world of Cronus, and perhaps, most critically, the failed Kaurava campaign, commanded by Captain Indrik Boreal, in which a full 5 companies of the Blood Ravens were lost. This loss was a serious blow to the chapter, robbing them of half their manpower in one defeat. This resulted in the Blood Ravens being forced to concentrate on building up their numbers and protecting their recruiting worlds for some time. Although this period did not pass without serious incident, multiple Xenos threats, including a considerable invasion by a Tyranid splinter fleet and a concurrent Orc war, assailed the chapter, which eventually found itself combating not only the heretics of the Black Legion, but insidious heretical threats from within its own ranks, including the betrayal by the chapter master, Azrael Kairos. Years later, an aged Angelos led the Blood Ravens to the world of Acheron, battling old enemies such as Maka and Gorgut's Edhunter for the legendary Spear of Cain. After tracking Gorgut's forces to the vault containing the spear, the Blood Ravens were caught in an Inquisition orbital bombardment that intended to destroy the device, but instead opened the vault it was sealed in. However, Angelos survives and leads an attack on the Temple of the Spear of Cain that overruns both the Eldar and Orc forces. When the Blood Ravens come to the spear, they instead find a trap that frees a ornate bloodthirster and its demonic hordes. Desperate, Angelos had the battle barge, the Dauntless, collide with a fissure in Acheron's surface to prevent the demonic infestation from spreading. Angelos was able to teleport to safety before the planet was destroyed. In the later parts of Millennium 41, the Blood Ravens' homeworld of Aurelia emerged back into the Materium. This re-emergence was orchestrated by the Black Legion, and it was only by the heroics of the Third and Fifth Companies that their plans to devastate subsector Aurelia were thwarted. What was left of Aurelia remains in real space to this day, and is heavily guarded and monitored by both the Blood Ravens and the Inquisition, as well as garrison regiments of the Imperial Guard. At the end of the 41st millennium, the Blood Ravens, still reeling from the Acheron campaign and the 3 Aurelian Crusades and the Karava campaign, were beginning to feel defeated. Angelos, now promoted to chapter master, had been planning to begin a rebuilding of the chapter and agreed that this consolidation was to be conducted alongside a large-scale recruitment. Blood trials to find aspirants were carried out on every world from which the Blood Ravens recruited, and that they were held more frequently. Production of arms, ships, and other war material increased. Angelos declared that once enough of the chapter had been rebuilt, the Blood Ravens would strike out to the galaxy anew. But this grand rebuilding was not to be. Scant weeks before initiating his plans, madness erupted in the sky as the Great Rift emerged and the Astronomicon went out. Contact between the Blood Ravens detachments conducting blood trials. The Omnis Arcanum became next to impossible. Ships full of aspirants were lost to the warp. All of the subsector Aurelia, outbreaks of mutation and other psychic phenomenon were endemic. Some Blood Ravens, psychically sensitive as many you are, perished or were driven to madness by the surge of empiric energy. Those librarians able to make some sense of the distortion reported terrible visions and nightmares, some of which contained the great unclean one, Olkar, stirring in his prison. At the core of old Aurelia, entire astropathic choirs died horrendous deaths as uncontrollable forces built up inside them to the point that their heads exploded over the expanding pressure. Worse still, many worlds under Blood Raven protection cried out for aid, with the entire Aurelian subsector now beset by demons. Ever a stubborn warrior of honor, Angelos ordered the Blood Ravens to try and intervene where they could, and for many years the chapter bled, isolated from the greater Imperium. Imperial contact was eventually re-established by the Adeptus Custodes shield captain, Pertinax, whose cruiser tracked down the Blood Ravens flotilla under the 7th Company captain, Atanaxis, and welcomed them back into the Imperium on the behalf of Rabute Gilliman, who, at the time, the Blood Ravens did not know had even been resurrected. The Custodes brought with them teams of tech priests, thralls, and servitors, as well as the new Gene Seed, to begin the new Primaris Space Marine project within the Blood Raven's ranks. Atanaxis hoped to glean some information as Trapta's true origin from the Primaris technology in Gene Seed, but stated that Gabriel Angelos was to not be informed of all of this until they had something to report. Many years later, the Blood Ravens were part of Gilliman's Indominus Crusade and had hundreds of Primaris Marines waging in the Titanic campaign. Using their talents for research, the Blood Ravens apothecaries and librarians applied every kind of scrutiny known to them to the Gene Seed and Primaris technology provided for them. What they might have discovered is naught but suspicion and conjecture to any outside the chapter who know of the Blood Raven's deep desire to seek out knowledge of their origins, and the Secret Masters in particular have made a point of ensuring that the knowledge that they have gleaned remains secret. The organization of the Blood Ravens is unique to that compared to other standard chapters. Notionally a codex chapter, the Blood Ravens' most obvious deviation from strict codex adherence is the high number of librarians in their ranks, as well as the practice of affording librarians dual roles as command units. The actual commanders of the Blood Ravens are known as the Secret Masters, and, as befits such a title, little is known of who these Marines are or what positions they officially hold within the command tree. Many of these masters are psychers who specialize in studying the ways of chaos, so that the Blood Ravens may better fight against the heretics, and who are believed to sometimes form up battle squads of the chapter's librarians to lead into battle. The dangers of a large number of psychically active members studying the ways of heresy are not unknown to the chapter, and so the Blood Ravens attempt to self-monitor themselves continuously against taint. Those souls who fall are kept for a time in the Librarium Sanatorium before being ritually executed by the Master of Sanctity. Initiates who fail the initiation rites in other ways that are driven insane and are mutated by exposure to the warp are led away in pentagrammically warded chains to a chamber simply known as the Tower, where they are kept to be studied by the chapter so as to ascertain what went wrong and how the knowledge of their failure can be put to better use. There exists rumor of demons being summoned and placed within these failed initiates before being banished. A rumor that, should it be discovered to be true, would surely spell the end of the Blood Ravens as an imperial body. The use of librarians in the chapter goes far beyond simple battlefield deployment. As seekers and users of knowledge, the Blood Ravens prefer to approach each campaign and mission slowly and methodically, with an emphasis put on a careful planning stage. The chapter will use its librarians to the fullest in predicting enemy movements and likely behavior. Once all possible occurrences have been discerned, the Blood Ravens will strike swiftly and with full force, never varying from the original plan. They are also able to strike before any obvious enemy movements have been made, ending campaigns before they have truly begun. These habits draw criticism from others in the Imperium, however, who view their slowness to act as cowardice, and their ability to predict enemy actions as verging on the sorceress. Further criticism has been made by the Inquisition, who has issues with the Blood Ravens' practice of acquiring chaotic weapons and artifacts, who both study and simply to deny them to the enemy. While the Blood Ravens claim to destroy these recoveries, there is little evidence of this, and it is believed that the Blood Ravens have amassed quite the collection of interesting devices. As said before, the gene seed origin of the Blood Ravens is currently unknown. There is much speculation around the exact origin of the Blood Ravens, most specifically about of which the first founding legions they are derived from. Several possibilities have been presented by various interested parties. There are 4 that have been noted to be the closest. The Thousand Sons, as their similarities in battle doctrine and links to the cult of Corvée, as well as their innate psychic prowess. The Blood Ravens, although this argument is principally based around the chapter's name and heraldry. The same is said for the Raven Guard, as they share similar naming schemes and nomenclature. And then there is a general rumor that the Blood Angels are distant relatives of the Dark Angels. There are several chapter elements that are unique to the Blood Ravens. I will begin with some of the notable relics of the Blood Ravens, the first of which being Alexian's Blade, which is a master-crafted power sword wielded by Captain Davian Thule of the Blood Ravens during the Cronus campaign. Next is Azariah's Cincture. Azariah's Cincture is a belt handed down by Chapter Master Azariah Vidya, known as the Great Father of the Blood Ravens chapter. The cincture empowers upgrades to the Space Marine armor, giving the wearer greater protection from melee attacks and increasing the amount of damage they can take. There is God Splitter, a powerful demon hammer gifted to Gabriel Angelos, the current chapter master of the Blood Ravens. The hammer contains a fragment of the Wailing Doom, a weapon used by an avatar of Cain that was recovered in the aftermath of the Avatar's battle in M38. And then there is Rogel's Fist, a power mace that is said to be created by the Imperial Fist's Primarch himself. Next, I will talk about the Blood Raven's vessels. Unusually, every Blood Raven's vessel is equipped with its own librarium and a full complement of curatorial staff who record every event that happens on the ship. as well as storing the mission testimonies of the chapter librarians who travel aboard. These records are eventually copied to the Librarium Sanctorum in an attempt to ensure the Blood Ravens have an uninterrupted record of their own history. The Omnis Arcanum is a battle barge that serves as a dual purpose as the chapter's monastery and the site of the Librarium Sanctorum. The Litany of Fury, a battle barge assigned to the 3rd Company. Armageddon, a strike cruiser. Glory of Calderis, a cruiser. Raven Spear, a sword frigate. The Observer, Sienta et Potentia, that are battle barges. The Rage of Erudition, the Ravenous Spirit, and the Retribution are strike cruisers. Of course, as with every chapter in the Space Marines, there are notable members that reside within the Blood Ravens chapter, starting with the Great Father and First Chapter Master, Azrael Vidya, Gabriel Angelos, Captain of the 3rd Company, who was then promoted to Chapter Master, Apollo Diomedes, former Captain of the Honor Guard, now a Chaplain, Jonah Orion, a Chief Librarian of the Blood Ravens, Atanaxis, Captain, Indrik Boreal, Brother Captain, Deceased, Rama, Librarian of the 9th Company, Nicholas, a Reclusiarch, Gordian, and Galen, an Apothecary, Valestis, an Epistolary, Martellus, a Tech Marine, Aramis, the youngest force commander in the chapter's history. He eventually rose to lead his company as captain and replacing Davian Thule. Tarkus, a sergeant of the 5th Company, 1st Squad. Thaddeus and Avitus, sergeants of the 5th Company of the 7th and 9th Squad. Cyrus, the scout sergeant. Davian Thule, now a dreadnought, who was the former captain of the 4th Company. And Uriel Ricarius, former 2nd Company captain. There are 3 known renegade members of the Blood Ravens that are known to the rest of the Imperium. Azariah Kairas, renegade, formerly chapter master and chief librarian of both, but now a Daemon Prince. Isidore Achios, a librarian that fell. And Seraphis, another librarian, though they were banished from the chapter for unknown crimes. This concludes the information regarding the Blood Ravens. More in-depth information regarding them will be recorded at a later date. This is Librarian Elias.